You open your phone for a few seconds. Someone is richer than you. Someone is more attractive than you. Someone seems happier than you. And the strange part is that your brain reacts before you even have time to think about it. Why? It feels personal, feels modern. But the real answer is far stranger. The urge to compare yourself to other people did not begin with social media. It did not begin with television, magazines, or even cities. It began long before written language existed. It began before history. It began when your ancestors lived in small groups and depended on each other for survival. Imagine waking up 20,000 years ago. There are no notifications, no follower counts, no carefully edited photos. Yet your brain is still watching other people constantly. Why? Because in the world your ancestors lived in, social position could determine whether you survived, found a partner, received help during hard times, or were left behind. Comparison was information. Comparison was protection. Comparison was one of the most important tools your brain possessed. Your ancestors could not afford to ignore where they stood inside their group because group membership was often the difference between life and death. A person who lost social support faced enormous risks. A person who gained status often gained resources. Your brain learned this lesson over thousands of generations. And it never forgot. Today the world looks completely different. The ancient machinery inside your head does not. Psychologist Leon Festinger proposed something called social comparison theory in 1954. The idea was simple but powerful. Humans naturally evaluate themselves by comparing themselves with others. You want to know how smart you are, how successful you are, how attractive you are. But there is no internal ruler that gives perfect answers. So your brain looks outward. It searches for other people. Then it starts measuring. Without realizing it, you spend much of your life using other humans as mirrors. This happens so automatically that most people barely notice it. You walk into a room. You scan faces. You notice clothing. You notice confidence. You notice who people are paying attention to. The process often begins before conscious thought catches up. Why would evolution build a system like this? Because your ancestors lived in small communities where knowing your position helped guide decisions about cooperation, competition, and opportunity. A hunter needed to understand his standing. A gatherer needed to understand her reputation. A young person needed to understand potential rivals. Comparison helped everyone navigate social reality. The system worked surprisingly well in small groups. Then something changed. Human society exploded in size. Your ancestors compared themselves with perhaps a few dozen people. You can compare yourself with millions, and your brain never received an update. The same ancient mechanism now operates in an environment it was never designed to handle. Every day you encounter athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, influencers, artists, and experts from every corner of the planet. Your brain treats many of these comparisons as meaningful even when they have little connection to your actual life. That creates a problem, a very large problem. Research by psychologist Thomas Gilovich has shown that people often focus on the strengths of others while focusing on their own weaknesses. The comparison is rarely fair. You compare your behind-the-scenes reality to someone else's highlight reel. You compare your doubts to their confidence. You compare your unfinished journey to their finished product. The result is predictable. You often lose. But there is another twist. Not all comparison feels bad. Sometimes comparison inspires you. Sometimes it pushes you forward. Sometimes it shows you what is possible. Researchers often describe this as upward and downward comparison. Upward comparison happens when you compare yourself to someone who appears better off in some way. Downward comparison happens when you compare yourself to someone who appears worse off. Both serve psychological functions. Both can help. Both can hurt. An upward comparison can motivate growth, can also create envy. A downward comparison can increase gratitude, can also create arrogance. The effect depends on how your brain interprets the situation. This is where things become especially interesting. Your brain is not trying to make you happy. It is trying to help you adapt. Those are not always the same thing. Many people assume the mind evolved to maximize comfort. It did not. It evolved to maximize survival and reproduction. Sometimes discomfort becomes useful. Sometimes dissatisfaction becomes useful. A person who never compared themselves with anyone might stop improving entirely. A person who compared themselves constantly might become miserable. Evolution often settles for systems that are good enough rather than perfect. And good enough can feel surprisingly uncomfortable. Consider the work of psychologist Roy Baumeister, whose research explored the human need to belong. Humans are deeply social creatures. Being accepted matters. Being rejected hurts. In fact, social rejection activates some of the same brain regions associated with physical pain. Why would emotional exclusion feel so powerful? Because for much of human history, exclusion carried serious consequences. Your brain learned to take social threats seriously. Very seriously. The fear of falling behind often grows from this deeper concern. You are not merely worried about achievement. You are worried about belonging. You are worried about value. You are worried about where you fit within the social world around you. Even when those fears remain hidden, they influence behavior every day. This helps explain why a stranger's success can sometimes feel strangely personal. Logically, another person's achievement does not reduce your own worth. Emotionally, your ancient brain may interpret the situation differently. It notices movement in the social hierarchy. Then it pays attention. This response made more sense when groups were small. Today, it often misfires. Imagine your ancestors living in a band of 50 people. The most successful individual directly affected everyone's lives. Now imagine scrolling through thousands of successful people before breakfast. Your brain responds to signals it was never designed to process at that scale. No wonder comparison feels exhausting. But there is an even deeper layer to the story. You do not compare everything equally. Certain comparisons hit harder than others. Why? Because context matters. A professional musician is more likely to compare themselves with other musicians than with professional swimmers. A student often compares themselves with classmates. An athlete compares themselves with competitors. Your brain pays special attention to people who seem relevant to your goals and identity. Psychologists call this reference groups. These groups become measuring sticks, sometimes useful, sometimes destructive. The more closely someone resembles you, the stronger the comparison often becomes. That is why a stranger's success may barely affect you while a friend's success can occupy your thoughts for days. Your brain sees similarity. Then it starts calculating. Am I ahead? Am I behind? What does this mean about me? These questions emerge naturally. The problem begins when you mistake comparison for truth. Comparison can provide information, cannot define your value. Yet many people unconsciously allow it to do exactly that. Social media amplifies the issue dramatically. Platforms present an endless stream of carefully selected moments. Victories appear, failures disappear, highlights remain visible, struggles stay hidden. Your brain receives distorted data. Then it reaches distorted conclusions. The comparison system assumes it is seeing reality. Often it is seeing a performance. This mismatch creates anxiety, dissatisfaction, and unrealistic expectations. The strange thing is that people have always compared themselves. The technology changed. The psychology largely did not. Ancient humans compared hunting skills. Modern humans compare follower counts. Ancient humans compared social influence. Modern humans compare engagement metrics. Different tools. Same brain. The mechanism remains astonishingly old. Yet comparison itself is not the enemy. The real challenge is understanding it. When you understand why your brain compares, you gain distance from the process. You stop treating every comparison as a verdict. You begin treating it as information. Information can be useful. A verdict feels permanent. There is a significant difference. Research by psychologist Carol Dweck on mindsets offers another clue. People who view abilities as changeable often respond differently to comparison than those who view abilities as fixed. If success appears learnable, another person's achievement can feel inspiring. If success appears fixed, the same achievement can feel threatening. The event remains identical. The interpretation changes. And interpretation shapes emotion. This is one reason two people can see the same successful individual and experience completely different reactions. One sees possibility. The other sees inadequacy. The brain creates meaning. Then the meaning creates feelings. Most people assume comparison starts with the outside world. Often it starts inside. Your beliefs influence what comparisons mean. Your assumptions influence how they feel. Your mindset influences what lessons you extract from them. That realization changes everything. Because it suggests that comparison is not something that simply happens to you. It is something you can learn to understand. And understanding weakens its grip. The goal is not to stop comparing entirely. That would be nearly impossible. Comparison is deeply woven into human psychology. The goal is to recognize when the ancient system is helping and when it is misleading. Sometimes comparison provides direction. Sometimes it provides distortion. Learning the difference matters. A lot. Your ancestors compared themselves because survival depended on it. You compare yourself because you inherited the same ancient brain. The world transformed. The circuitry remained. Every time you scroll past someone who seems more successful, more attractive, or more accomplished, a very old system wakes up and begins doing exactly what it evolved to do. It measures. It estimates. It searches for meaning. But that system was built for villages, not billions of people. It was built for reality, not endless highlight reels. It was built to guide behavior, not determine worth. The next time you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's, remember what is actually happening beneath the surface. You are not witnessing a personal failure. You are witnessing ancient psychology in action, a survival tool, an evolutionary inheritance, a leftover adaptation from a world that no longer exists. And the strange thing is that the moment you understand that, the comparison begins to lose some of its power. You can still learn from others. You can still admire others. You can still grow because of others. But you no longer need every comparison to become a judgment. You can let it remain what it always was. Information. Nothing more. Nothing less. You opened your phone for a few seconds. Someone still looked richer than you. Someone still looked more attractive than you. Someone still seemed happier than you. But now you know that the voice doing the comparison is far older than the screen in your hand.